All right, guys, so here's page two. So what we're looking at is we have a rectangle, and what we actually have to find is we got to solve for x, and we got to figure out what the actual base and height are. Right now, they're both written as an expression. So first step, solve for x. Once you find x, we're going to plug that into each of these sides to figure out what those values are. Okay, so now remember, if it says that the perimeter is 34, that means if we add every side, then it's going to equal 34. So what's this side? 3x, because that's the same. And then what is this side? Through 6x minus 1. So now, if I know the perimeter, I can create an equation to find x. I'm going to add up all these sides. So I'm going to write 6x minus 1 plus, don't forget the plus, 6x minus 1, and then plus 3x and plus 3x one more time. So basically, I just wrote all of these terms, all of these sides, and then it's equal to 34. Okay. So now the first thing I want to do, combine the like terms. So remember, all the x terms go together. Okay, and then I only have two constants or two numbers without x, those two negative ones. So 6 plus 6, 12, plus 3, 15, plus 3 again, that's 18. So it's going to be 18x. Okay, then here it's going to be negative 1 and negative 1, which is minus 2. Okay, so now you can see it's a little bit easier to solve now. So now it's going to just add, we're going to add 2 to both sides. Okay, to isolate x and get it by itself. So we bring down the 18. 18x equals 34 plus 2 now. Next, don't forget to add these up. That's 36. And then what's the last step? Divide by 18. Okay, so x equals 2, but we're not done. Okay, so all we did was find the x value. Now what we want to do is find the base. Well, the base is that side that's on the bottom. The height is the side that's on the side. And honestly, if you mix them up and you label this one as the height and this one as the base, that's okay, because technically if I turn that rectangle, that could be height or the base. Okay. All right, so what we want to do is we're going to take that 2 and we're going to plug it right into that expression. So here for the base, it's going to be 6 times, I'm going to basically take out the x and put parentheses, times 2, and then minus 1. So what's 6 times 2? 12. Then minus 1, 11. So that side is actually equal to 11. Okay, so we started with an expression. Once we solved for x, then we found the side. Okay, now we do the same thing for the height. Now we plug it into the 3x. So again, replace the x, put parentheses, put that same 2. I'm basically just taking this 2 and plugging it right in here and here. Okay, so 3 times 2 is then 6. So that side equals 6. All right, so now here's the box, what we've been working on for the last week or so. Okay, so remember we got to set our box up first. Okay, so I'm going to put this side of this factor on this side, so x and plus 5, and then the x and 8 go here. And remember, the first step is to multiply. So x times x is x to the 2. Then x times 8 is 8x. Then x times 5 is 5x. 5 times 8, that's 40. And then remember what we want to do is write out the product or the answer. Okay, in your packet it was area. Sometimes I said it was the answer. Here it's the product. It all means the same thing. First, we're going to write that first term, the highest exponent. We're going to add up the like terms, 5x plus 8x. That's going to be 13x. And then we have one more term, positive 40, so we just write plus 40. Okay, it's the same setup on this next one. It's another 2 by 2. So 6x and minus 1. And just make sure, guys, that you're putting the numbers that are in the same parentheses on the same side. Like, don't switch them. I shouldn't put the negative 1 here on top. So I want to make sure that these are all matched up. Okay, so then here, the 4x and the minus 2. So these will go on top. All right, now same thing. I'm going to multiply. Okay, so 6 times 4, 24. But again, just like this first one, if I do x times x like I'm doing here, this is also x squared. Okay, then here, for this next box, remember I'm looking at the number above. It's negative 2. Number to the side, 6x. I multiply those together, 6x times negative 2 minus 12x. Okay, then I look above, it's 4x times negative 1. And by the way, you guys are working, you don't have to follow along. If you guys want to work on this on your own, you're good. But you're welcome to follow as I go. Okay, so then negative 2 above times negative 1 to the side. That's going to be a positive 2. That's the only time it becomes positive, by the way. Don't forget, negative times a negative is positive. But when I add these up in the next step, I will not make them positive. Okay, so first I start with that 24x squared, just like I did in the last one. Then when I add up negative 4 minus 12, that will still be negative. I'm adding two negatives. Okay, and then the last term is plus 2. Okay, so again, now this one's a 1 by 2, so it's just one term, 4x, goes on the left, and by the other two terms, which go on the top, so 3y minus 8. Same thing, I'm going to multiply it through, so here it's 4 times 3, 12. X times y, since they're different variables and not the same, I'm just going to write them both together, x, y. Okay, so anytime you have two different letters, you just write them side by side. Okay, so now 4x times negative 8, that's negative 32, and then with an x. And then these are not like terms because they both have x, but they both don't have y, so they're not like terms. I'm going to write them separately, starting with the one that has the most letters. And by the way, when you're figuring out what goes first, the rules are the highest exponent, and then the most letters go first. Okay. All right, so scroll down a little bit. Okay, so now exponents. So remember with this one, multiply. You can put this, to be smart to put this in your notes so that when you do this test, you have this kind of help you remember. Multiply the bigs, or the coefficients as we call them, and then add the littles, okay? Or basically add the exponents. Okay, so first we're going to start off with negative 9 times 5, that's our bigs, our coefficients. That's negative 45. Then I've got a to the 5th and a to the 6th. I add those. Okay, so 5 plus 6, that's 11. And then the next one is b. That's a 1 because there's no exponent, so it's automatically a 1. And then we have a 3. So 1 plus 3, b to the 4th. Okay, then our last one, c, negative 4 and negative 1. Again, when I add two negatives, it's still negative. That's still negative 5. And then the last step here is you got to remember that if we have a negative exponent, we have to move it and make it positive. And the way we do that is we use our negative exponent rule, which allows us to move that to the denominator. So now it's plus 5. I move it down and it becomes positive 5. And everything else remains in the numerator. So negative 45, a to the 11, and then b to the 4th. Okay. Now the difference with this one and this one is that I have an exponent on the outside of the parentheses, which means I'm going to raise everything inside of those parentheses to the third power. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm distributing that 3 to each of these terms. I'm going to distribute to the negative 4, and that becomes negative 4 to the third power. Notice I put it in parentheses. That's important, especially when you type that into the calculator. Make sure you put it in parentheses. Okay, then I'm going to distribute it to the 5. So now it's f to the, guys, what do we do when we distribute? Do we add or multiply here? Multiply. So 3 times 5, 15. Okay, then here 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. Okay, so first thing, I have this negative 4 to the third power. So that's negative 4 times negative 4 times negative 4. So you can take out your calculator. And again, the way you want to set that up in here is first when I type a negative, by the way, make sure you always use that white button, not the subtract button, unless you're subtracting. Okay, then raise that to the third power. And again, put that in parentheses, okay? So then that's going to be negative 64. These are already changed. But then again, just like the last problem, if I have a negative exponent, that needs to go to the denominator. So I move that down, and then make the exponent positive. Okay, so now the last two here on this page, okay, are equations. Remember all the equations, I want to keep myself organized. So first thing I want to do is get rid of this term on this side because I want to keep the x's on my left. Okay, so here I'm going to add 7 because it's positive 7. And then I add it to the other side as well. So add it to the 15, which is the other like term. And then I also want to get rid of this 4x because I want the x's on this side, not the right side. So if it's positive 4, then I subtract. Okay, and I subtract that 4x from this side as well. Okay, so then that means that these two cancel, and so do these. They become 0. Okay, then it's 6x minus 4x. That's 2x. 15 plus 7. That's 22. And then the last step, divide by 2. Okay, so that's x equals 11. Okay, 22 divided by 2. Okay, the next one, similar, but the first step, when I have a number in front of the parentheses, what do? Or distribute, same thing. Okay, so now we do 3 times 2x, that's 6x. And don't forget to distribute to both numbers, so 3 times negative 7 minus 21. And then I just bring down the 15. And now it's a lot like this last step where I'm getting rid of this term from this side. So I'm basically just adding instead of subtracting because I'm doing the opposite to both sides. Those cancel out. I get 6 here. And then 15 plus 21, that's 36. And then if I divide both sides by the term that's next to the x, remember, always divide by the number that's next to your x. So divide by 6. So then 36 divided by 6 is 6. So x equals 6. Okay. All right, that's the video for page 2.